Okay, so today we're going to look at the mitochondria assignment here. And whenever you open it up, it's going to prompt you to load it in a new window. So fingers crossed, whenever I click this, it should open up correctly. Alrighty, here it is. And you guys can actually write directly on here. It is in a it's in a Google Doc. You are not going to be coloring. I know in the instructions it says that you're going to be coloring things, reading, answering, coloring, and labeling. You're not going to be coloring and you're not going to be labeling the diagrams. You're only reading and answering the questions that go along with it, okay? So ignore it where it says color and label. Don't do that. I'm going to switch mine over to a Word document here just so that I don't have to go back in and delete everything out of it. But it's the same paper that you guys have there. All right, so the questions are going to go along with the reading that is above those questions. So that's where you'll find your answers. You'll notice that some of the words are bolded, and that is to draw your attention in there so you're focusing on certain terms. So I'm going to start with question number 1. You know, I like to read my questions before I start the actual reading part because then I know what I'm reading for. So why are mitochondria called the powerhouse of the cell? Mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell because they burn or break chemical bonds in glucose to release energy to do work in a cell. And that's my answer. What simple sugar is broken down in the mitochondria? Well, next paragraph here. So remember that this energy originally came from the sun and was stored in chemical bonds by plants during photosynthesis. Glucose, a simple sugar, so I'll type glucose out here, and other carbohydrates made by plants during photosynthesis are broken down by the process of aerobic respiration, which requires oxygen in the mitochondria of the cell. Where does this energy in glucose originally come from? Originally, it came from plants during photosynthesis. Where is this energy stored in glucose? It's in the mitochondria, I believe. What cell process occurs in the mitochondria? That's going to be cellular respiration. I'm just going to abbreviate it as cell resp. Why is cellular respiration an aerobic process, and what does this mean? So right up here it tells us it's broken down by the process of aerobic cellular respiration, which requires oxygen. So it is an aerobic process because it requires oxygen. And it means that it requires oxygen. What energy is released when the chemical bonds of glucose are broken? This releases energy ATP for the cell. ATP. Why do some cells have more mitochondria? The more active a cell, such as a muscle cell, the more mitochondria it will have. Okay, so the more active the cell is, it will have, and a muscle cell would be an example. Name 2 other organelles besides the mitochondria that contain DNA and have a double membrane. So the mitochondria are about the size of a bacterial cell and are often peanut-shaped. Mitochondria have their own DNA in a double membrane like the nucleus and chloroplast. The outer membrane is smooth while the inner membrane has many folds called the cristae, which help increase the surface area of the membrane. So describe the outer membrane. It is smooth, just like the chloroplast was. Why is the inner mitochondrial membrane folded? It's folded so that it increases surface area. And the folds are called cristae. Some people call it cristae. Moving on down here, color and label the membrane, the outer membrane, which is 8 purple, and the cristae, 9 red on figure 3. So the outer membrane, this is the cristae. The cristae greatly increase the surface area of the membrane so that the carbohydrates, simple sugars, can combine with oxygen to produce ATP. The electron transport chain takes place across the membranes of the cristae. Inside the cristae is a space called the matrix that contains enzymes needed for the Krebs cycle. What part of the mitochondria increases the surface area where the ATP is produced? The cristae. And the cristae contain enzymes needed for the Krebs cycle. As I told you before, you're not going to be coloring or labeling anything, so just leave that diagram blank. Almost done. Moving on down here. Adenosine triphosphate is the energy molecule used by cells to do work. It's a nucleotide consisting of a nitrogen-containing base, adenine, thymine, cytosine, or guanine, a 5-carbon sugar, and 3 phosphate groups. ATP is able to store and transport chemical energy within cells. The last 2 phosphate groups are joined by high-energy bonds. When these bonds are broken, energy is released for cells to use in ADP forms. Enzymes to help break and reform these high-energy bonds. So what does ATP stand for? Adenosine triphosphate. And that would be me getting some type of an email. Ignore that for now. What 3 things make up an ATP molecule? So it's a nitrogen-containing base, a 5-carbon sugar, the things in bold up there, and 3 phosphate groups. How many high energy bonds does it contain? The last 2 phosphates are joined by high energy bonds, so 2. Where are these high energy bonds found in ATP? Between the phosphate groups. What helps weaken these bonds so energy can be released and then later help them reform? Enzymes. When an ATP loses a phosphate group, blank is released for the cells and a molecule of blank forms. Okay, so that's going to be energy right up here. Energy is released. And a molecule of I'm going to delete the word forms there. ADP forms. And we're going to ignore this little part here in figure 4. We color the 5-carbon sugar red, label it ribose. So this would be the ribose over here. No, this is the 5-carbon sugar. Oh, okay. So it's 5-carbon sugar and ribose. Color and label the nitrogen base blue. That's number 12. So that's the nitrogen down here. Color and label the 3 phosphate groups yellow. 13. These are the 3 phosphates and the 2 high energy bonds right here. They're green. Summary questions. What is the energy molecule called? ATP. What macromolecule is made by plants and burned? And these are all from the reading, so from the very beginning is where you'd find these answers. How would the number of mitochondria in an insect's wing compared to the amount found in an insect's body? So remember, mitochondria, you're going to have more with high energy. So a wing, the wing is going to be more active. So it will have more mitochondria than these cells in the body. What product of photosynthesis is used in cellular respiration? I don't remember that one off the top of my head. I'll have to go back up. Oh, glucose, right? And oxygen. What is the advantage? So it increases the surface area. And allows for more what to be done? ATPs to be produced. What is the diagram below representing? This is a molecule of ATP. So it's labeled here with an A, so that's going to be the adenosine. Here's a sugar, and then these are the 3 phosphates. And that is, I believe, this part right here as well. This is the ATP molecule. Alrighty, guys, that is it as far as this assignment goes. I will talk to you soon.